Every year, autumn is a prime time for new game releases, and this fall absolutely proof of that. Today we're reviewing the 15 best games of October, which will include big bangers that have already made a lot of noise and the return of many beloved franchises. Now let's briefly break down everything. What's up guys, it's Broz, and here we go. And we're starting with Battlefield 6, which is positioned as a fresh start for the franchise after the troubled 2042. Its flagship feature, Tactical Destruction, pushes environmental damage to a new level. Players can reshape the battlefield, blow holes with rockets, set C4 to open routes, or smash walls with a sledgehammer to create cover. The August open beta quickly drew comparisons to Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. Familiar classes returned, stability was improved, and performance complaints were few. Still, old problems resurfaced. Cheaters appeared within hours, though DICE moved fast with bans. Despite this interest was high, Steam alone peaked at over 300,000 concurrent players, showing the series still has strength. Meanwhile, EA has been setting expectations sky high. The publisher claims an ambitious 100 million player target, a number the series has never reached. Even Battlefield 1 stopped at 30+ million. Many see this as a far-fetched idea, especially with the rumored budget exceeding $400 million. EA is also betting heavily on a Warzone-style battle royale, adding more pressure. Battlefield 6 launches on October 10 for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC. PS5 owners have finally got their second pure exclusive for the platform. It certainly made a lot of noise. In previous reviews on the channel, the world split into two camps. Those who call this game Ghost of Yōtei and flatly refuse to buy and play it, and those who ignore all this woke stuff and don't understand what the fuss is about. We won't repeat ourselves, but it's safe to say there are few PS5 owners indifferent to this game. One way or another, it attracts attention, and it would seem that there is nothing more to be surprised about. But the game was recently hit by a scandal when one of the Sucker Punch developers, Drew Harrison, posted an offensive tweet on social media, mocking the tragic death of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Within hours, screenshots of the post spread across the internet, launching the hashtag #BoycottGhostOfYōtei, and gamers began massively canceling pre-orders. Sony and Sucker Punch reacted quickly and fired the employee, but Harrison only added fuel to the fire, stating that they would do it again 100 times stronger because it was worth standing up against fascism. For many, this incident became a confirmation of their concerns about politics in games that were already brewing due to the change of the protagonist to a woman. Write in the comments what you think about all the noise around Ghost of Yōtei, and is the hatred it's getting deserved for a game that hasn't even been released yet. And now we move on to number 13. All dinosaur lovers will have something to do in October, because the third installment of Jurassic World Evolution is on the way, and it promises to be very large-scale. The developers seem to have listened to the fans, and the main new feature in the third part is, of course, the natural breeding of dinosaurs. For the first time in the series, male dinosaurs will be introduced, allowing you to create full-fledged family herds. Parents will pass on their traits and colors to their offspring, creating a complete family tree. New opportunities also await you in construction. The devs have added a modular system and expanded terraforming tools, allowing you to create more complex and multi-level parks. You can now customize every building element, including walls, windows, and ceilings, and even share your designs with other players through the in-game workshop. A curious detail: in the early stages of development, scientist portraits were created using AI. However, following negative community feedback, Frontier Developments quickly reacted and removed this content, replacing it with human-made art. Honestly guys, I don't really like to bother you with requests for likes and subscriptions in my videos, but according to the latest channel stats, 99% of viewers are watching without subscribing. If you're digging these reviews, let's crank up the action, and thanks in advance. Moving on to number 12. The last major public test of Arc Raiders took place back in the spring, and the game performed very well, looking fresh and vibrant. The mechanics of sliding, jumping, and parkour were also very well received. Moving around the world is fun and fluid, and this became one of the strongest elements of the gameplay. Team play also received positive feedback. Now for the downsides. One of the most frequent negative comments was about the repetitive gameplay. The main mission loop, arrive, destroy the target, collect resources, quickly became repetitive. Players requested improvements to the weapon recoil and its sounds, as they were not very expressive or, shall we say, tactile. And as always, What do you think players complained about the most? That's right, optimization. On PC, players encountered micro-stuttering, a common issue for games on the Unreal Engine 5, even on powerful systems. Meanwhile, on consoles, the main problem was frame rate drops below the target 60 FPS, along with graphical bugs and screen tearing. Additionally, it was noted that the dynamic resolution often dropped to 1080p, especially on PS5 Pro. But to summarize, the tests were quite successful, and many noted it as one of the most high-quality new team shooters, where you can shoot robots and of course other players. Obsidian Entertainment has always been known for its ability to create deep role-playing games, and their new project, The Outer Worlds 2, which releases on October 29, is arguably their most ambitious attempt to surpass their own success. The developers themselves boldly compare the sequel to the iconic Fallout New Vegas, saying that this is what they wanted to make the original if they had more time and money. The improvements promise to be vast. The world of the Arcadia colony has become significantly larger, with extensive exploration opportunities and a ton of side content that makes up to 90% of the game's total volume. The combat system has also received significant upgrades, turning it into a full-fledged shooter with a deep RPG system. The companion system has also been expanded, making them more complex and multifaceted, which should enhance the RPG aspect. It's also interesting that the combat system was completely reworked, with design director Matthew Singh taking Destiny as a guiding light to achieve that same visceral feel. Obsidian even collaborated with Halo Studios for feedback on the gunplay, and added lots of parkour and sliding to make exploring the world more dynamic. Vampire: The Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Many have already heard about the release, so let's get straight to the point. It's hard to call this a full-fledged RPG. The classic mechanics are pretty much absent. You don't create a character. Instead of building your own, you play as the vampire Fire, who can be male or female but with an androgynous appearance. For example, you couldn't make a bald, muscular, and bearded vampire. At best, you can tweak eye color, hair, small details, and outfits. There's no classic leveling system either. Everything revolves around clans. There are 6 of them, but 2 are locked behind the shadows in Silk Add-on or the Premium Edition. Honestly, that feels cringe, and definitely doesn't encourage pre-orders. There is a skill tree, but it's more like action game abilities. Dialogues and quests are more straightforward, with fewer branches and consequences. Overall, the game feels more like Dishonored with vampires in a modern setting. Not that all of this is negative, apart from the locked clans, but you shouldn't expect a deep RPG here. The world, though, is stylish and atmospheric. The setting is limited to Seattle, which isn't as small as it first looks, though the streets are empty, cars don't drive on the roads, and an NPC dialogue is dull. The strongest points are movement, combat, and stealth. That's where the game really shines. So if you don't expect AAA depth, you might very well enjoy Bloodlines 2. Now let's dive into medieval madness. Kingmakers throws you straight into the past with a futuristic twist. The premise is wild. You time travel back to the Middle Ages, armed with modern firepower like M16s, rocket launchers, tanks, and even helicopters, all to rewrite history in massive-scale battles. Imagine the Black Knight movie, only cranked up with way more destruction and intensity. At any moment, you can shift from an RTS-style top-down perspective, commanding your armies like in Total War, to boots-on-the-ground third-person action. 1 second you're giving orders, the next you're unloading an assault rifle into a medieval cavalry charge. And with entire towns and castles being fully destructible, the chaos feels larger than life. But despite all the firepower, it's not as simple as modern guns beat swords. Developers at Redemption Road Games emphasize that victory still requires tactics and careful unit management. Enemy troops aren't just mindless hordes. They're AI-driven and behave more like soldiers from Mount and Blade than Total War. There's also a full co-op story mode for up to 4 players. Kingmakers is set to launch in early access on October 8, 2025, exclusively on PC at first, with console versions confirmed for later. High-quality racing simulators haven't been a frequent occurrence in the gaming industry in recent years. Still, the best way to initially see this promised quality is to at least watch some proper gameplay, which iRacing, the developers of NASCAR 25, have yet to release. we only have dev diaries and partial in-game clips. And that's very strange because, according to producer Matt Lewis, they already have a working product that has been tested by real NASCAR drivers. However, despite the release being scheduled for October 14th, there is still no full gameplay footage. Instead, there are only short teasers that have raised more questions than excitement among fans. The situation is worsened by the confirmed omission of some key tracks, including Bowman Gray and Portland. Additionally, the short teasers that have been shown suffered from noticeable stuttering and low FPS. Even so, the developers have confirmed the game will feature all 4 series: Cup, Xfinity, Craftsman Truck, and ARCA for the first time. The career mode in particular will let you start your journey in the ARCA Menards series and work your way up to the top. Ninja Gaiden 4 marks the long-awaited return of the series with a twist. The spotlight shifts to Yakumo, a prodigy from a rival clan, while Ryu Hayabusa takes on a smaller, but still playable, role. Similar to Dante in Devil May Cry 4, the project comes from a rare partnership: Team Ninja, creators of Nioh, and Platinum Games, creators of Bayonetta and Metal Gear Rising. With both studios involved, combat is pitched as an even sharper take on second part, mixing precision with spectacle. Expect stealth kills, tight parries, and Platinum-style boss fights with wild phase shifts, sometimes even sliding into 2D. A new rail action system keeps battles moving at breakneck speed, maintaining momentum no matter the transition. It's designed to be the fastest and smoothest version of NG's trademark action. For those wary of the infamous difficulty, there's relief. Difficulty runs from easy to true ninja, and if you're stuck, a ninja master appears before bosses, handing out items so frustration doesn't stop progress. This makes the game more welcoming without losing its hardcore edge. Release is set for October 21st on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC, with Day 1 access via Xbox Game Pass. Little Nightmares 3 once again drags us into the nowhere, a bleak, surreal world crawling with twisted creatures. This time we follow 2 children, Lo and Alone, each carrying their own tool: a bow for Lo, a wrench for Alone, vital for puzzles and survival. The most talked about change is online co-op. You can play with a friend or solo with an AI companion, and thanks to the Friends Pass, only 1 copy is needed. But fans aren't entirely happy. Many argue the series is losing its identity, shifting toward a platformer with horror elements. Weapons make it feel more arcade-like and dilute the uneasy atmosphere that defined the originals. A change in developers might explain the shift. Supermassive Games has taken over from Tarsier Studios, bringing their cinematic horror style. If you pre-order Little Nightmares 3, you get Little Nightmares Enhanced Edition for free, immediately available for digital download on PC, PS, and Xbox. It's the original game remastered with 4K and 60 FPS, so you can revisit the roots while waiting for the new adventure. Meanwhile, Switch players face a drawback: no free upgrade to Little Nightmares Enhanced Edition for LN1. On Switch 2, you'll need to buy it again. The third part of the saga is launching on October 10th on current and last-gen consoles, and PC plus Nintendo Switch 1 and 2. Old fans were disappointed with 2 things in the new Painkiller. First, the game lost its dark tone and became brighter and more toy-like, with more effects and without the old-school atmosphere of the first version. And second, Painkiller was previously a purely single-player project, but now it's almost entirely focused on co-op. And this isn't just an option, it's a key mechanic designed for 3 players. This shift from a single-player boomer shooter to a multiplayer PvE shooter has been the most discussed topic even before the release. The developers introduced a weapon upgrade system, the use of tarot cards for buffs, and even a story that is completely unrelated to the original lore. But according to old fans, the game has lost its DNA, and now feels more like Wolfenstein Youngblood. However, a part of the audience, on the contrary, saw a positive side to this, as it opens the franchise to a wider market. Nevertheless, the decision to change the genre's core has caused a real split among fans and raises the question of whether the new Painkiller will be able to live up to its name. The game is coming out on October 21st on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC. When you talk about beat-em-ups, Double Dragon is one of the first names that comes to mind, and on October 23rd, the legend returns. Double Dragon Revive is more than just a remake. The developers at Arc System Works, the creators of Guilty Gear, took the classic formula and infused it with their signature style, so it not only looks but also plays in a new way. the game has transitioned to 3D graphics while preserving the iconic arcade style. The combat system is now more precise and responsive, allowing for powerful combos and environmental attacks, like throwing enemies into dumpsters or carnival rides. The devs confirmed a secret ending where you can choose a darker path. You can betray your brother, join the enemy gang, and become the final boss yourself. New and reimagined classic enemies will also appear in the game, including the boss Willy, leader of the Shadow Warriors gang, and even new playable characters like Marion and Yaguranzo, each with their own unique style. As a pre-order bonus, players will receive a full-fledged minigame, Double Dragon Dodgeball, which is an alternative to standard skins or in-game currency. While many horror games lean into action, Tormented Souls 2 is a throwback to the 90s. The sequel, releasing on October 23rd, stays true to the classic formula: fixed camera angles, tank controls, puzzles, and resource scarcity. It's a bit ironic, because if the developers hadn't said this was on Unreal Engine 5, you'd be hard-pressed to guess it from the visuals. However, the sequel significantly expanded the campaign, which now takes more than 14 hours to complete, and players have also noticed the voice acting has been greatly improved. A new mechanic has been added, allowing the main character to switch between realities to solve puzzles and access secret areas. The game now offers 3 difficulty modes: Assisted for newcomers, which includes autosaves and more ammo, Standard for those who appreciate a classic challenge, and Tormented for the true veterans of the genre. Some players who tried the demo noted that enemies feel too spongy on lower difficulties, while the highest difficulty feels very similar to the original. The sequel also removed some classic mechanics, such as reloading weapons by combining ammo, which slightly disappointed fans. If you're familiar with Dotemu games, you know they are masters of nostalgia. But their new project, Absolum, which releases on October 9th, is something else entirely. First, it's their debut original IP. Second, it's a unique mix of beat-em-up and roguelite with a stunning visual style that looks like a morning cartoon with a Hellboy vibe. Third, this indie game has a soundtrack that would make any AAA blockbuster jealous. The team of composers includes true legends: Gareth Coker, the composer for Ori, Yuka Kitamura from Dark Souls, and of course, Mick Gordon, who gave us the soundtrack to Doom Eternal. This game will feature several playable characters, including a frog wizard named Brome. He is the most prominent character in the trailers, using his staff for close-range attacks and his sticky tongue for air combos. Also, it includes roguelite elements, which makes every playthrough unique with procedurally generated levels. Permanent upgrades between runs ensure you'll always feel like you're making progress. Plus, the game supports both local and online co-op for up to 4 players. Release is scheduled for October 9th for PS5 and 4, PC and Nintendo Switch. Moonlighter 2: The Endless Vault. The publisher for this game, just like the first part, is 11-Bit Studios, who are also the developers behind games like The Alters and Frostpunk 2, which could be a good sign for the project's quality. Back in 2018, the indie game Moonlighter had a solid launch, earning positive reviews and an 81 on Metacritic. 7 years later, its creators at Digital Sun have decided to take a huge step and move their sequel to 3D. The Endless Vault, which is heading into early access on October 23rd, keeps the fan-favorite isometric view and colorful art style, but now in full 3D graphics. This is a colossal risk for an indie studio, but the developers want to work with the community to polish the new mechanics and make sure the ambitious shift to 3D doesn't harm the formula that made the original a hit. In early access, players will be able to explore 3 biomes with unique enemies, find more than 120 relics to sell in their shop, and experience a large part of the story. The updated combat system will include 4 main weapon types and nearly 100 new perks for the shop and dungeons. I usually try not to include overly childish games in my tops, but this, it turns out, is a highly anticipated release from Japanese developers Mediavision and the well-known publisher Bandai Namco. Digimon story fans have been waiting for this for 8 years, and now on October 3rd, the series returns. The game's recent demo received a lot of positive feedback. Players and the press noted that the graphics and 3D models of the Digimon look updated, and the localization and voice acting are much improved over previous installments. The updated combat system now includes new elements like chain and burst, which make battles more dynamic and tactical. Many routine tasks have also been streamlined, which players have appreciated. For example, the Digivolution process now requires less time and resources. A notable decision is the ability to transfer all your progress from the demo to the full game. This means you can start your adventure now and seamlessly continue it after purchase. We all know that movie tie-in games from the 90s were often, well, not great. But what if a game based on one of the biggest blockbusters of that era was released now, but looked and played just like it did back then? That's exactly what Terminator 2D No Fate is. The devs at Bitmap Bureau, who call themselves 80 Seconds Kids, deliberately created a game styled after 16-bit shooters. This game is a true love letter to the era of Contra and Metal Slug, where gameplay is more important than graphics. The game completely follows the plot of Terminator 2 Judgment Day and allows you to play as Sarah Connor, John Connor, and the Terminator himself. One of the studio's artists, Hank Nieborg, stated that he intentionally worked with the limitations of the 90s, including the color palette and D-pad controls, to preserve the authentic atmosphere. This project is completely different from modern adaptations, which most often offer new, original stories. You'll get to play it on the last day of October on current and previous gen consoles, PC, and Nintendo Switch. By the way, if you've noticed, there weren't many RPGs dropped this fall, as many were pushed to 2026. If you want to see the top RPGs worth keeping an eye on, check out this video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.